Your business is in sync with LiveSync. This webinar is powered by LiveSync Accounting and Xero Accounting Software. Introducing Attorney Dexter Destajo.
So bank reconciliation is one of those very interesting module in Xero because it is very easy to work with bank reconciliation in Xero. Now, let's start with the access. The only people who can, or users who can do bank reconciliations are standard and advisor access, no? If you don't have this access, you cannot do bank reconciliation. So in this bank reconciliation, we'll talk about bank statements. And there are two types of bank statements in Xero where we can generate bank statement through bank feeds or manually importing the statement from a CSV. We'll also touch bank rules. We'll also touch reconciliation process. Now you have a simple reconciliation process here: simple matching, cash coding, find and match, and direct entry. Then you'll do also manual reconciliation if you don't want to do bank statement reconciliation, and then we'll check also reconciliation report on detail. Okay, so let's start with bank feeds. I think I've discussed the bank feeds already. Now, if your bank allows you bank feeds, you make sure you set up the bank feeds. So what does bank feed does for us is that once your online banking is connected with Xero every day, Xero will have new bank statement lines here added every day, and it will show you unreconciled. And then if those transactions are still not reconciled, it will show up also here automatically without you doing anything. Every a certain time of the day, Xero would receive automatic bank feeds from the online banking. That's the first method. The second would be to have bank statement would be import method. By the way, why is it important that we have a bank statement in Xero? Well, you cannot do a bank reconciliation technically if what you have is only a book entry. To do a bank reconciliation in Xero, you need also the bank statement. So then when you're doing bank statement of Xero, you would have bank statement on your right side, and then you have your book entry in your right side. Left side is the bank statement, right side is your bank book entries, where you have to match line row by row. Okay, you have to do that. If you don't have a bank statement, either an imported or a bank feeds, you cannot do a bank reconciliation. What is left for you would be manual reconciliation. We'll discuss that later. Okay, so I would want to touch now, if you don't have bank type, so let's say what particular bank? Let's say you're doing First Abu Dhabi Bank. First Abu Dhabi Bank does not have bank feeds. So what's your option? You have to manually import your online bank statement to Xero. How do you do this? Okay, so this is the process of actually importing a bank statement to Xero so that it will allow you to do a bank reconciliation. Now take note, you cannot start a bank reconciliation unless you have already a bank statement. So in case of, for example, a bank, here in our example, we don't have a bank feed, then we will have to do a manual import of bank statement. So first is you have to download the bank statement sample from your online banking. You can do a CSV export or a Excel export. Then once you have that, you have to download that CSV template from Xero, and then map what you have downloaded from your online banking, transfer that to that template. Then you import the CSV to Xero, and then you do another round of mapping as a system mapping in Xero. And then once you import that, you start checking whether the import is correct. So let's do that one by one. So I have downloaded, so this is the bank statement that I have downloaded from my online banking. So it has a date, it has a transaction, it has a reference, it has a credit column, meaning the money is coming in, and then you have a debit balance here that is also coming in here as well, right? Now, you have the downloaded bank statement. Step 2, we need to go to Rock Bank. Make sure you are going to the right bank that you are going to import. So you can click import a statement here, or you can click this manually import a statement. So that second step is to download the template. So let's download the template. The template is here. Okay, download the template. I'll open the template. The template would look like this. Okay, so you have date, amount paid, description, reference, and check number. Now, these particular columns are optional. You can put nothing or you can put something if that's available, the information is available. But for the date and amount is very important. The date must be moved. So your date here, this date, must move to that date here. And then your amount, these two amount, must be mapped under one column. So do you have to split debit credits? No. So in the template, you have one column only for the amount. A positive amount would be a credit. All this, enter this as credit. And then all the debits, meaning the withdrawals, will be negative. So here you will see an amount, positive and negative here. Positive meaning a credit to the bank account, and then negative would be a debit to bank account or withdrawal. So let's do the mapping. So then this is the mapping that we did now. Okay, so I move the reference and the transaction to this. So this is now, I'm doing the second step. Actually, the third step now. I'm mapping the online banking details towards my template. So now I save this as a CSV file. Make sure you save this as a CSV file. Okay. When you're saving this, make sure you select CSV, delimited. Otherwise, Xero would not read it and it would be an error. Okay. So what I would do, CSV, save, save. Yes. Okay. I close this one. Or you can close. It's up to you. So you notice negative are withdrawals, positive are the money that's coming in. Okay. Now I'll do step 3. What step are we now? So we are in step importing now, number 3. So we are now importing the bank statement. So how do I do that now? Let's go back to the import. This is now the window that I did. I open browse and I find that file. So that file is in my presentation. Here's CSV, import. Then you go to the step 4, which is the mapping. Now, be very careful. If Xero would say there's an error and it cannot read, then meaning there's a problem with your import or your CSV. Fix the CSV to match what I just showed you earlier. And then once that's fixed, try to import it again until you get to this screen. So this is now the 4th stage. The 4th stage would be mapping in Xero. Now, okay. So here, Xero will pick up one specific line, and normally you do this only one time. If you're sending the same templates every period and you don't change the pattern that you are sending, generally this is the one time you're doing this. So if this is the CSV showing the date column, meaning this one, or sorry, this here, okay, is basically this. So the date, so in Xero we would record that as a transaction date. We will map that as transaction date. The amount is the transaction amount. The pay, if we have a pay column, then we'll do pay as well. Description would also description in Xero, and then reference would be reference in Xero, and then check number if you have a check number. So yeah, this is how am I mapping this. So you would see this, that how it is being mapped. So it's picking up the first example here, this particular example, okay? This is how it would look like if we proceed with reconciliation. The transaction date, it picks this amount. Transaction amount negative 630, meaning this is a withdrawal. The description of this is this one. I leave this blank because my column is also empty here. I don't have a check number here. So that's why it's also blank. But if you have that data when you're going to import that, then it will basically put that data. The others, which are not applicable, it will have a red triangle as an inapplicable. So this is how it would look like in your bank statement. So what I would do now is I'm ready. I tick this, don't import the first line because my first line is actually my header. So I would want to exclude that. So I tick this, and then now I'm saving this now. So it says there are 24 lines on this bank statement. Okay, let me check first if I have correctly put the right amount. So this is 2,000 and 50,000. Okay, fine. Then I click OK. Let's wait. Now there's no error. So what would happen is after I import, immediately Xero put this under my reconciliation tab under my rack bank. And it auto-populates everything and it started detecting what are the possible match of this particular bank statements. Okay, don't get too excited. Let me just show you first what happened now to a blank bank statement we had earlier. Now it is already filled up with the data that I have imported. So now you have the necessary information in your bank reconciliation. You have a bank statement, it's either from a bank feed or a manual bank import, which we just did, and then your book entry. Okay? Now, before starting any bank reconciliation, and after you have done the manual importing, it is very important that you have to review that your import here actually aligns in the right column, because in many instances, especially for new ones who are doing this the first time, if they're not doing it properly, all this amount will go under either all in their spent column or received column. If you're not seeing this properly, let's say 6.3 would be on debit and then receive, and if I see that this 1,000 is under this column, under spent, then my import is wrong. So if your import is wrong, although you have successfully imported, but when you review it that it's not in the proper column, what you do is you need to delete. How to delete that? By going to here in your bank statement and then open this particular batch of import. So this is your import batch. You imported it today. And then what you do is you just delete here. Delete the entire statement. And then you restart all over again, fix your template that it should be right, and then start all over again on the import. Okay, so you can delete, and then once you delete, you start all over again. Now, assuming that we didn't have, let's check now. Based on our checking, everything is in the right places as we imported them, right? So these are the columns here. If I wanted to look at properly here, so I have 1,500, 2,000, 15,000, 5, and then 15. And then let's look at in Xero if all the credits are actually in line. Yes, it's there. It's there. It's there. 950. So this is now correct. Now, once we have ascertained that all the import bank statement is already correct, you can proceed now to the bank reconciliation process. So what is our reconciliation process? First is matching the greens, then do a cash coding, find and match, and direct entry. Okay, so that's our method. So here, before I'll start that, let's try to look at our reconciliation report. What does it look like right now before you start a bank reconciliation? So if you're an accountant, you would be able to understand this, because our bank reconciliation report would be actually composed of 2 parts, actually 3 parts, okay, or 4 parts depending on you. But here in Xero, it's composed of 3 parts. One is the book entry outstanding or outstanding checks or outstanding payments that has not been reconciled yet. And then also your outstanding or deposit in transit that has not been reconciled here. And then all the bank lines that you just imported is also added here. So you would notice that your statement is, your bank statement is 80,000 here, but your book entry is 83. So there is a variance to that between bank statement and the book entry or your ledger. So you would notice in your dashboard here, your bank statement is 80,000, but your balance is 83,000. So you need to reconcile that. If you look at your dashboard, this is how it would look like. Your dashboard would tell you, hey, Mr. User Accountant, you have 24 items that needs to be reconciled. And that's why it's not matching. The goal of the bank reconciliation is that your balance in Xero and in your statement balance must be the same number. Once you have done that, then you have successfully done the reconciliation. So when I click reconciliation here, this would bring me to my reconciliation tab in my dashboard. Okay, there are so many ways to make our reconciliation very easier every month or every day or every quarter, depending on how you're doing reconciliation. You have a cash coding method here, which I will explain later. But one very important here is what we call bank rules. So bank rules, what is bank rules? basically you are setting up a specific and recurring transaction in your bank statement that if it will match the rule, Xero would suggest to you that this is the direct entry. Okay, so I'll give you an example. So in our bank statement, and every month we will have interest income. So I would say to Xero that every time I import or a bank feed will come in and I see a description saying interest income, Xero would suggest to me what particular account and what would be the particular contact that is going to be used. So what I will do here, I set up that bank rule very simply. I'm doing a bank rule. Is it for spend money or receive money? Since I'm doing income, I'm doing a receive money rule, okay? And then it will ask me when money received from the bank statement, is it all? Yes, normally I would say all, okay? The payee, sorry, I would go to detect description because in my import it will be description, right? So this is description. So I'd say detect from the column of the description and then look for anything in the description that contains this text. So I would say, sorry, interest income. I'll copy interest income here. Okay. So normally you have transactions in Xero but it's recurring, and then just to make your life easier, you'll have to add a condition or this particular law so that it will automatically suggest. And it would say the contact will be for what contact? Pay from the bank, entered during or entered during reconciliation. So normally I would say existing, and then I would say Rock Bank. Okay. Do I need to add additional lines? I will not need additional lines. Then I would just say that this entry would be how it will be inputted here, and I will put the account would be what is other revenue, for example. What is my tax rate? Since this is really no, this is a tax exempt because this is an income. And then I would say this is an income from branch 1 and this is an income from department 2. Reference will be set, okay, from, you can say reference, that's fine. And target bank is always the Rock Bank because you always have that. And give that title as Rock Bank Interest Income. So that is the rule that you would want to create here. So I create the rule now, okay? I should have done this at the beginning before I started importing, because what would happen is if I'm doing before I've created the rule before the import, then that would work. No, automatic it will suggest. So let's look at how it would be here now in our system. So I've created a bank rule. So let's say I would do towards the end. I don't know if it would detect now. So interest income, see here. So this is what I'm talking about. So once I imported with this description, immediately Xero would allow us an option that we can reconcile this using the bank rules. Okay, now I will not do that yet here. I'll skip that. Let's go to the proper process of reconciling. So how do you do that? First is to start reconciling, you have to reconcile the easy green matching. Okay, so reconciliation, I'm here in reconciliation. We will have 24 lines to reconcile. Okay, now you might ask this, what is this? Columns in your left and columns in your right. The left would signify the important bank statement. The right are the book entries, and Xero is suggesting that you have already entered this book entry and perhaps this is the match to your bank statement. Okay, so sometimes it will give us also possible options here. You can select maybe a lot of options, but in this case, for example, this is the first payment, then I can check that one, right? So let me just go back. Okay, start all over again. So first step is I will try to reconcile the green first. Why green? Because the green signifies a suggestion from Xero. So I have to convince myself that this book entry is actually this bank statement. So now I have a check here in my bank statement saying 6,300, and Xero is saying this is actually check 1 of your June 1 entry. The date is the same, the date in your book is the same, so then I would reconcile. So now I have 23 items. I'll go ahead with the rest in Word 1,000 oh, maybe this is reference to another customer. So I can click more detail and say, this is another customer. This is for this particular invoice. So then this match here as well, 1,000, the date and the invoice. And I click again, okay. Another here would be LiveSync Accounting Advance. Oh, there's a LiveSync Accounting Advance here also already recorded initially. We did this earlier. This is also that entry. I'm reconciling that. Another one would be there's a bank statement withdrawal of 1,000. Do you have an existing book entry? Yes, we did that already. This is that 1,000 in June 10. Yeah, is it also June 10? Yes, it is also June 10. So then this is okay. So I'll do that for all my green. Again, there was a cash deposit of 500. This was payment from a particular customer, right? So here I see sample, yep, it would match. Then I would say, okay. And then I would say, again, let's go to another green. Is this the same? The answer is yes, the same date and amount. Eat fresh, yes, the same. I'm reconciling the book entry. Again, there's a check, and there's also a check, also 05. This was the replenishment. Yes, reconcile. Withdrawal 08. Again, this matched to our payment to Dubai suppliers earlier. Okay. Again, we're still doing the first step, looking at for the greens, no? So inward, another customer. What is this entry? It says, oh, this could be a conflict here. Maybe there was a wrong entry in the bank, but actually this is the same because it would tell us that this is the payment that is being transferred. So I would say, okay. Another one. So now, how many is left? So 14. So the number is reducing. As an accountant, you're happy because you are reconciling one by one all your transactions. So then we have also another check withdrawal, 185, the same amount and the date. So sometimes what would happen here is in this transaction, if I go to my age payable here, so in my age payable, for example, so my age payable is showing me Max Mobile, right? So this amount, Max Mobile. Max Mobile is this amount, still unpaid. Still unpaid. Okay. It's still unpaid. And in your bank reconciliation, Xero is saying, hey, accountant, there is one open bill, 175 Max Mobile. Is this the payment for this? So it would happen that you actually process the payment in the bank, but as an accountant, you forgot to update your bill. Can you do this? Can you reconcile the statement in a bank even if the bill is not paid? The answer is yes. What would happen if I do that? Click OK. Automatically, Xero would also apply that payment to that bill. When I refresh the bill now, the payment is done. And then if you open that payment, it will say it's reconciled. Okay? When it's reconciled, you would say, this is the bank statement and this is the reconciliation it has done for us. Let's do to another green. Another replenishment, I click OK. Nothing more. So I have 12 items more. Now take note, Xero can do 10 rows per page. So I'll do the second page, okay? So here, we don't have this entry. And then we are now with the bank rule. So then let's apply the bank rule. So it's asking us, is this the bank rule? Yes, definitely it's a bank rule. I would say rack bank interest, or don't apply if it's not the rule, or otherwise you edit the rule. But what would do is, because this is the same, then I would say, okay. So what's left is we have 11 entries. So that is step one, right? Step one. Step two, cash coding. So we clean up the accounts now with all the easy ones that can be reconciled. So if you look at your book entry in the accounts transaction, some of them are already reconciled. Some of them are still not reconciled. When you look at the bank statement as well, it is showing you some of them is reconciled, some of them are not reconciled. When you look at your reconciliation report, you will see that the reconciliation report is now reduced, right? The number of rows is smaller now. So these are the things that now that we need to reconcile further. But if we notice in our bank account, there's particular transaction in our bank statement saying this particular, no? There's every time we initiate a fund transfer, there is that transfer charge that they are charging us, okay? Now, you can do a direct entry if you like, or you can do also bank rule if you like. But what I would do For transactions that are recurring in my bank statement, I will do cash coding. What is cash coding? The cash coding method is allowing us to reconcile multiple lines at the same time. It's like an Excel. So here I wanted to show more, okay? And make sure I tick that so that everything is there. So these are the remaining bank lines that are not reconciled. So what I would want to do is cash coding can actually allow us one by one, row by row, put an account and then reconcile directly. There's another way of doing, there's another method of doing a reconciling. Instead of going here, okay, doing this process, you can also do the cash coding. Now, the application for cash coding for us as an accountant is very helpful, particularly for similar transactions like transfer VAT, right? Transfer charges with VAT. So I can actually group filter this, then all my 26, this one, I can reconcile them all together. What do? I click here, click that. I can enter Rock Bank. So see how Xero automatically autofill everything. Then I would say bank fees, also autofill. And because it has VAT, I would say this is VAT expense. And then this is also branch one. So if I'm highlighting all together, they will have the same data, the same inputs. We are not matching this to anything because this particular transactions has, you have not entered this yet. No, there's nothing in your book or ledger unless you have if you enter this as a book entry already, then you don't need to do cash coding. You only do this if you have not done a book entry in Xero, and then you need to do a direct entry from your bank statement. So what I would do is I can fill this in and then also reconcile at the same time. And then if you would look at, okay, here we don't have any unreconciled bank charges, right? Because we never inputted this. So what would happen now, I would, from 11, it will be reduced to 8. And then in my accounts transactions now, okay, in my accounts transactions now, I would have now recorded the bank charges here, okay? I have recorded the bank charges here all together in our bank line. So now it's reconciled. Now let's complete the remaining part. So the next step would be, you've closed all the green ones, you've done the cash coding, okay? And then you can do find and match. So what's find and match? So find and match is basically manually locating a transaction in your bank to your book entry. So this, for example, would be, what is 2,600? There is a withdrawal of a 2,600. So let me find and match. I'll open a find and match and find a particular transactions that is actually we're going to pay for this. We have a transaction. Let's look at our accounts payable. Aha, maybe this is a payment for another supplier, 500 plus 1,000, 2,100. So it's 2,600. So this is a transaction for another customer. I would do, because I'm finding and matching this, I try to find the bill for this. I'll type a search or a name, and then I see, aha, this is another, and this is this transaction. So technically, we issue one check for 2 invoice and payment of this. And take note, when I open this, there are still no payments to these bills, still not paid, okay? This one, I open that, there are still, this bill is also not paid. So technically, we're recording the payment through a bank reconciliation process. And because we have no idea, you have to go to your checkbook. What is check number 3? And then you find out it's actually a check that you issued for this particular invoice. Now you find and match, you find that by filtering, and then you can now reconcile this. So I'll confirm what would happen to your bill. This has already been paid. See, it's paid. It is also paid. Okay, let's do the rest. So there is a Facebook, this one particular Facebook payment that we paid using with our debit card. So again, I'll find this, and what I would do is I'll search Facebook, because it's not, there's no green, no, so it's not suggesting. If it's not suggesting, then you're the one who's going to find this amount. So I'm not finding this amount, and then I'll go again to my accounts payable. Nothing. Okay. Okay, let's open everything. What do we have here? We have a similar amount. Okay. Let me try looking at my bills. Do I have any Facebook here? Sample supplier. So there's a sample supplier here. So the name is sample supplier. It's not Facebook. So we would search sample supplier. Oh, it's not showing up. It's paid. So it's paid here, but it's showing in our bank, right? So this could be, there could be an error on the entry of this. So I'll check this again. What was the payment? That's why we cannot find this particular payment. It's because it was erroneously recorded as petty cash. So what do I do to fix this? I will remove this payment because this was not actually a petty cash transaction. It was a bank transaction. I leave it open. I refresh here. So here, it will now auto-suggest. So this is one example where in the find and match, we realized that it's not showing up, but there's actually an entry, and we realized that there was an error on the payment. It was not in a rack bank, but in the petty cash. So what we do, we fix it, we remove the petty cash payment, and then put that on the, remove the payment, and then we allow payment through using a rack bank reconciliation. The bank. So I click this OK. Now it's fine. Refresh this. Yep, payment is done. Perfect. Correct now. Then let's do the rest. Now there is this inward remittance sample customer again, and it's showing two numbers. So I then, because it's not suggesting a green, then I have to find this manually. I'll type sample. Now you're making your life easy if you're doing an online bank transaction, and then in your online bank transaction, when you're doing transferring money, you have to be very clear on your reference so that when you export it in online banking, it will also be included in your Excel. So in this example, inward remittance is saying the reference in our bank statement is also showing when we are importing this, right? So if this is 1950 and it's saying to us, this is for invoice 01, so invoice 01, invoice 02, I just need to search those customer and then I reconcile that. Okay, let's do another one. Check 04. So what is check 04 of 29,000? Okay, we leave that because we don't know it. We cannot find. Check 0784. What is check 0784? Find again. Find and match. Check withdrawal of 84,000. So maybe this was an advance for the Toyota. 84. Yep. So then what I would do, because we have not recorded this, we did not record the payment, I go to Toyota, and then in this contract we have not done, so maybe we have issued a check for the 10% of this, then we record this as payment to that, okay? So I would take here Toyota, okay? I'm taking that, the one that I'm going to reconcile, that I reconcile. So it's showing us now that I'm selecting this as Toyota, but Toyota is 84,000. So here is an example where you need to split the invoice to the partial payment. So, okay, I click split, and then I say, this is the balance amount of the bill, but I wanted to apply 8,400 only. Then I apply the 1,840 only the partial of this bill. So this is what we call split. So when you are splitting, you are only recording partial of your payment to the invoice that is not paid. So when I click this OK, I have successfully recorded the payment. And then when I open this, this is already reconciled today. Yep, done. Perfect. Now let's do another one. 315 Dubai Furnitures 315. Okay, so then I would select furniture because that's the name. If we can find that, okay, I find that. And this again, there was an advance. Okay. Again, the amount of is 315 and the invoice, open invoice 315. We need to split if we want to allocate now the actual down payment for this. Okay. Then I reconcile by doing a split recon. Now we're left to 3 items now. What is this? Online bank feeds. Okay, online bank feeds. So one of the process would be direct entry. Now, after you exhausted all these methods in your bank reconciliation, sometimes it's left for you what to do with all others, no, because you cannot find already the transactions. So in this case, for example, online banking, we didn't do a bank rule. So we can do actually recording this direct. We have not, as an accountant, we have not recorded any 200 here. We we were just informed when we uploaded that there was actually a debit from the bank. Normally, you don't know this until you receive the bank statement. So we can now do a direct coding. I would say rack bank, okay? And then I would say bank fees. And then normally what I would do, I just copy this as my reference. And then, so this is how the method you are doing this, a direct entry method. There is no VAT for this. Not sure if there's, so then I would do VAT as well here. I assume there's VAT on this. So that's VAT inclusive. And then I can allocate branch one, allocate department one. If I need to add more details, I can click add details here. And then basically it auto-fills everything. And I just said for the month. If you want, this is an option. You can add more details and then you would say month of June. You can also do that, right? But what we're doing here is whenever we're adding details or direct, it would be a direct payment process. So when I click here, it created an entry already, and then the next step is only reconcile. So what's left for us is this 31 and 10. So what is this 29,000? Actually, I cannot remember what is this 29,000 now. So withdrawal, which is, let's see if I can find, if we can still find, do a find and match. So, June 15 was actually our payroll. I realize now, yeah? So this was our payroll on June 15. I would say PR, I'll type all PRs and then I would see all the PRs here, right? So this is June 30, but this is not, because this is June 15, this was the next cutoff. So maybe this is not the payroll that we're looking for. We'll do the second one. This is the payroll again. PR, I'll sit that because that is the reference for payroll. Now all this payment, this is one check. And take note, when I open this, our pay run here, just a review, is still not paid, right? So this pay run is not paid. We have not paid this, or everything is waiting for payment. So the pay run can be paid using, again, by bank reconciliation, okay? So if you notice these red arrows here, it's saying these are bills. These are not, no bills has been paid for this. So you can take all of this because I assume, so okay, it's total now. 31,000 was actually the check that we paid for this payroll. When I reconcile that, what would happen to my payroll would be, if I refresh this, all my payroll now is paid. Yeah, it's all paid. So again, you can make payment through a bank reconciliation to your payroll. Now let's try to find the payments you made for the payroll. So I see Eliza here in June 15, and this was also the payroll that we made last time in 15. So this is, so in our process, in last week, what we did was Eliza was paid separately, but the three guys were paid on one check, right? So in this case, there's actually one check because we withdraw the check, the 8,000 we give to Eliza, and then the 21,000 we give to the three guys. So this is now matching for us. So it's 29,000, see, 29,000, and then, okay. Okay, so now Xero will tell us, great job. You have reconciled 80,600 bank statement. But here's still our problem. Our problem is still showing us it's still not really reconciled because it is not matching. So what do? We open this account here, reconciliation report. And this will tell us why it's still not reconciled. It's not reconciled because there is one payment in June that in, in June 12. Okay, we recorded this in June 12, a payment for another supplier, 1,575. Okay, how do we pay this? Maybe we pay this by check, but the supplier did not encash the check yet, right? So this is now an outstanding payment in our bank reconciliation because as a bank statement date at the end of the month, the supplier did not actually reconcile this. So what would happen here is you would have this reconciliation report, but your balance sheet would be showing the 78,000, but you have correctly imported the 80,000. If we look at the balance sheet now, okay, your balance sheet is showing you 78,000. Okay, it's different. Bank AED balance sheet. So sorry, my mistake. I will do this to June 30 so that I can see if there are items that are still not reconciled. So only this. So here, if I do June 30, because my balance sheet is June 30, where's that? Yep, balance sheet is June 30. 46 here, it's matching with your 46 in your book. But in your bank statement, it's actually 47 only. So why is the difference? It's because 157 is still not reconciled. Now, if you go back to the dashboard of the accounts, if you're going to the accounts right now, Bank, the amount that you are looking at here is actually the balance as of June 26. Okay, so there are details there that still not been reconciled. So why is this different from your reconciliation report? Because the amount that is showing here is, these are the dashboard is giving us the data for the, let me close this, because here, as of today, which is June 26, it's showing this amount, okay? But if you move this to towards the end of the month, that amount would change, which is your balance sheet date, okay? Because the balance sheet picks up the end of the month, right? It's not the specific 26. This is why it's showing that amount, and why this amount is still 80, because again, it's your reconciliation report that is as of 26, okay? So that is your bank reconciliation when you are doing an import, a manual import method. So if you have to scan here, there are still items that are not reconciled. Your book entry is still not reconciled here. This one are, I don't know, what is this? These are your post-dated check because these are December 2020. That actually remains to be unreconciled. But one now item in your book entry is not reconciled. Let's look at your bank statement. All your bank statement are already reconciled. So all of it, see, all reconciled. Good. So we are okay now. This is your bank statement showing here. And then your book entry is showing also here, which is 80,000 at this level. So that is bank reconciliation.